Hey everybody, welcome back to Blushing Nerd Tarot. How I Tarot, originally seen on Three Fat Readers channel, and recently I saw it on Adventures in Metaphysics. Krista did this, so I'm going to kind of try to do this as a bit of a rapid fire. But I thought these were some fun questions, and Krista had some great answers, and so I'm going to give it a shot and see if we can go through these in a reasonable amount of time. So, first up, what sparked your interest in tarot? Quick answer is my neighbor. My neighbor sparked my interest by basically having a deck out on the table one day, and I was hooked immediately. I think before I even made it, well, actually, I think while I was sitting at the table, I think I started looking at what I could do to get into it. You know, I didn't know much. How do I get a deck? Where can I get one? And where can I get all of the materials in the world to learn all of it all at once? Because that's kind of how I take things in sometimes, and that's very much how I was reacting to this. It felt like there was this strong longing and urgency and everything all at once to get myself as up to speed as possible, almost right away. So it's not that is the full story of why, what led to me in life being someone who would be open to and interested in tarot so quickly, but as the thing that sparked my interest, it was very much my neighbor, and just seeing her at the kitchen table just get out a deck of cards, and that was it. That's all I needed. Question 2, do you only use tarot in your readings, or do you add in other forms of divination? Well, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that Oracle decks are making their way into my collection fairly rapidly. If you would count that as something other, and I think it is, since it's different systems, it's still cartomancy, but it's maybe not tarot, whereas I think all tarot is Oracle, but it doesn't necessarily go the other way. So aside from that, I don't have much. I do enjoy crystals. I obviously enjoy having candles and incense around, but I don't really have any other divinatory tools. So for my readings, I would say it's strictly tarot and oracle. Question 3, are you a psychic or a card reader? I am a card reader. I think is probably the best way to say it. That just that is how I see it. I do feel that I have strong tendencies as an empath, but I don't know how to properly evaluate whether or not that is something that I really am, or should claim at all. So it's the easiest thing to say is yes, I am a card reader. Number 4, do you use tarot for anything other than readings, such as spells, altar cards, display as art, or gifts? At this time, I do not. It's funny having a card. So I have a card, an oracle card, on a little stand in a little display cabinet in my reading area. But the only reason I have that there is because it was actually an extra card that came with one of my oracle decks, or an order from the motel gift shop. for Madame Clara, and I only say that because it's an extra card, and why that's important is because I really stress when my decks aren't together. That is when one deck isn't, all of its component pieces aren't in one place. So for me to display one card might cause me undue stress. Maybe if I had multiple copies of the same deck or something, I might be okay with that. But long story short, no. Number 5, have you ever taken a break from tarot? If yes, why? No, I have not. Number 6, if you could live in any tarot card from the RWS, which would it be? I thought about this question when it came up on Krista's video. And the first thing that came to mind was the Ten of Pentacles. And I think I got to stick with that just because it just I just went right, my mind went right to that card. And I shouldn't mess with that. If I overthink it, I could probably convince myself that there are a whole bunch of other cards that I would like to live in, but I think that's the one. Question 7, do you use the tarot in a predictive way? In other words, do you predict the future? No, I do not. In the strictest terms, no. What the tarot, I think, does is, rather than declaring a future that will be a certain way, I feel that the tarot can point out different options. It can illustrate paths that you may not have been able to recognize on your own. It can unlock avenues for a person's future that they may not have been able to see without this tool, because I think it does have immense power looking forward. However, I don't believe in a fixed future. I think that we are able to make choices that impact what is going to happen. And I think tarot can, in a lot of ways, help us make better choices by helping us think through the possible outcomes. Number 8, intuitive, rote, classic, modern, or mix? Maybe a bit of a mix. It might depend on system for me. I would say, and it's been a long time since I saw this. I probably should have watched the original one back so that maybe they added a little bit of clarity there for this question. But even if not, intuitive, I find is I tend to be more intuitive and in a flow with Marseille, because, and maybe that would be true of really any pip deck for me, but it depends, I guess. I do like having the backbone of classic meanings. So I think it's a mix of classic and intuitive, probably with a bit of a lean toward the classic that is informed by the intuitive, if that makes sense. Number 9, what are your most consistent tarot habits? My most consistent tarot habits are I guess there are a couple things that could feed into this. I have tarot habits that have to do with how I handle the decks, how I tend to, I always shuffle before putting a deck away, unless I had a reason for putting it in order, obviously. But I tend to like that. Actually, John Ballantrae is kind of the one that maybe planted that seed. I don't know, with just the idea of putting the period on the end of the sentence with shuffling before you wrap the cards up and put them away. But that does make me feel better. It just kind of closes the session in a way. It's almost like some people do with their practice in casting a circle and calling the elements or the directions or the whatever, the spirits. There are different parts of that ritual that I think are really important, and I see tarot in some ways having some similar things for me. Just how I like to sit and think about questions before, if it's a client question, how I shuffle while I'm thinking about the question, and so on. I think that answers the question. Number 10. Do you see tarot as a magical tool, a spiritual tool, a psychological self-help tool, or something else, or all of the above? I think it is, and it's saying, do I see it as one of those things or all? I do see it as all. The reason I see it as all is because I think I honor the feelings that everyone has for their tarot, for their version of what tarot is for them. And if tarot is a magical tool for someone, then it has to be a magical tool for me, because I am committed to, and not committed to, that sounds like I have to put much effort into it. There's no effort in it at all. I fully accept everyone's way of using this tool, unless it's somehow harming people, or if your tarot practice is somehow taking advantage of people, then I don't support it in any way. But I don't think that's what they're talking about here. They're talking about magical, spiritual, psychological self-help. Yep, it is, in my opinion, to me, it is all of those things. Absolutely. Number 11. Do you collect tarot decks? That's in quotes, collect. Why or why not? Yes, I do. I collect tarot decks because I really enjoy the variation, in art style, in to some extent in system variations. A lot of it comes down to the art, but also a lot of it comes down to the tactile experience for me. That's part of the art form, if you ask me. The fact that, like this deck, Location, Spirit of Place, it has this wonderful feeling to it, where you have, nice thick cardstock, beautiful foiling, this iridescent black edging, a deck that is so perfectly formed, nice clean edges and everything else. And then at the same time, I pull out one of my vintage yellow box RWS decks, and the cards have some stains on the edges, and maybe the cuts aren't clean on the corners, or they're just worn down from use or something. And that has a very specific aesthetic that I really enjoy. So lots of options there, but those are some of the reasons why I am a deck collector. I also I tend to be somewhat of a collector of things anyway. I mean, well, I don't have many collections. I guess if I put it that way, it makes it sound like maybe I have a bunch of collections of things. I don't. I don't have collections of things. So I don't think that's the right way to put it. I should say that tarot is probably one of the things that has sparked my passion for collecting, unlike many others. And I do have a book collection, pretty sizable book collection, but that's a slow burn. That's one that I might pick up a new book. New books. Sure, I get new books. My wife and I have frequently, or my son too. We get books. That's fine. But in terms of the collecting, I'll buy an antiquarian book once every couple of years if it's one that I really want and feel I want to add to my collection, or I'll get an autographed copy of a book if it's an author and a book that I really admire, and I've built a bit of a collection for those. But again, that's kind of small. I mean, we have a lot of books in general, but the collection books, it's pretty small. So number 12, do you have an aesthetic when it comes to the types of decks you enjoy? If so, what is it? I do, I guess. I have an aesthetic that I enjoy. I have a couple of aesthetics that I enjoy, and I guess it depends on, maybe it depends on the era of deck or something. But I tend to like, I like RWS decks. I like variations on that theme. And the aesthetic can be a pretty wide range of things. I don't necessarily get into abstract as much. Those decks typically don't really call me too much, so I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's a little difficult for me too because it wouldn't necessarily be a deck that I own. So so I haven't committed all of them to memory. But in general, if the art is super abstract, then I find it's not something that I enjoy using as a tool. It's tarot. I might really appreciate the art because it's not that I don't have anything against abstract art. I think it's wonderful. But as a tarot device, as a tarot deck, it's probably going to be lost on me. It's just not something that interests me right now. Doesn't mean it won't at some point, or there won't be a deck or two that strike me at some point. But for now, I'd say that's the one I tend to avoid. The bonus question, number 13, do you personify your deck? Doesn't say decks, your deck. So it could be just maybe your favorite. Do you personify your favorite deck? Hard to nail down a favorite anyway. We've all seen top 10s and all that, and it's usually hot competition for people that have collections to give out those slots anyway. That's pretty tough. But I do tend to personify a lot of the things in my life, and I've done that since I was a kid. I would personify silverware in a drawer, because if I was taking the last fork, let's say there were 2 slots for forks, one of them had like 4 forks in it, and the other one, maybe the smaller forks, it had 2 in it. I would feel bad if I took a fork from the slot that only had 2 in it, because then I'd be leaving one of them alone. A little peek into my psychic world, my psyche. I did that with pretty much everything in my life from a very young age. I always wanted to make sure that I was taking care of those things. If I had any control over it, if they had feelings, just in case they had feelings, I wanted to take that in consideration, and I've always done that. And I think I do it with my tarot decks too. Maybe not exactly that way, but certainly some of the decks have a personality that is probably more my doing and something I created in my head, so that makes it personification. So yes, I do. So that is all for now on that tag. I brought out Oak, Ash, and Thorn on that aesthetic question because, I mean, come on. That's, wow. So, anyway. So thanks, everybody. It was fun doing this tag. I'm glad I saw it on Adventures in Metaphysics, and kind of sparked my interest, and I'm anxious to get this tag going again. I think it has been a little while since the original one came out, so I think it'd be fun if some others would like to chime in and do their responses if they haven't before, or maybe even they have before and they have some updates to it. So that'd be interesting too. So thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.